everybody. Welcome back to the Everyday Night. I'm Joe.
And I'm Jeff.
And Jeff, tonight we are discussing a topic that actually is timely in the modern world, and that is the issue of debates, arguments, and discussions, particularly political debates. And are they actually debates? And what are debates? And
we've talked about in a previous episode how to chivalrously argue a point.
Yes.
How to have a discussion, reasonable adult discussion.
Yes.
We laid out some of those rules,
and even the term arguing has a couple of meanings. It has come to have a negative connotation. You're arguing, it's emotional, it's not rational, but arguing a point is defending a point. It can be logical. It's terminology. You're having an argument. We're having a discussion. Well, you're arguing anyway. But yes, we talked about that, and it does come down to veritas, truthfulness,
and courtesy to an extent.
And courtesy. And I think modern televised political debates are neither courteous nor truthful.
Yes. Well, they certainly devolved to the point where they are not.
Yes. And they also don't follow what I understood debate meant, the traditional form of debate. As I learned it. I'm just adjusting. There we go. So we're looking eye to eye. So a lot of people have heard of the Lincoln Douglas debates, but haven't read them, don't know what they were. They just know there was Lincoln. It was actually, in a lot of ways, the first big media event surrounding a debate. There was a series of 7 debates between Abraham Lincoln and Stephen Douglas.
Yeah.
Yes. And they were debating. They were both running for senator from Illinois.
Right.
Just after the direct election of senators came into being. Previously, they had not been directly elected by the people.
And they were the entirities of their speeches were published widely,
very widely.
These were hours long. I think you said 3 hours long. Some of them.
Yes. The first speaker spoke for 60 minutes. Then the other speaker spoke for 90 minutes, and then the first speaker spoke for 30. So in total, they were 3 hours long.
And before we start on a 90-minute debate, I'm going to ask you the most important question that we begin with every time is, what are you drinking?
Yeah, and I couldn't even wait here because just the thought of this was making me thirsty. This is a very nice little Pinot Noir. Very simple. So, and you, sir, what are you drinking?
I've got a bourbon that we discovered this weekend while in Ohio. It is a Cleveland Underground Distilleries. It is a bourbon aged in black cherry wood casks. It's very nice. It's got a little, I think my ice is making it a little cloudy, but it's got a nice, round, robust flavor to it. It's a little bit sweet. There's a little bit of a bite to it. It's 92 proof. So it's got all the alcohol you want, but I really enjoyed it.
Discovered it, and it's an underground. Did you have to go spelunking to find it?
No, someone had brought it to the surface and put it up on the retail shelf, just like all the others. So lucky for that.
That's very thoughtful of them. So no safety equipment was required.
Not in buying it anyway. I could have used a little after I'd had some.
Yeah.
But
okay.
Your health, sir.
Ooh. And to yours. So, so there's actually a format in high school forensics or debate called the Lincoln Douglas debate. It doesn't go on for 3 hours. It's about 45 minutes in total. There's a single issue, essentially.
Right.
And there's a pro and a con, and the first pro goes first, and they speak for a certain number of minutes. Then they're cross-examined by the other side. Then the other side speaks. They're cross-examined by the first side. Then both conclude, and so on, and rebut and conclude, and goes on for about 45 minutes. The premise of both of those, Lincoln Douglas, but primarily modern forensic debate, is you have to have evidence. You can't make shit up.
It certainly goes to whether you are winning or losing. Evidentiary argument is critical to winning a debate.
You said the percentages on which the debate were scored.
Yeah, typically there are several sections as you lined out, and the judges score them. It's very esoteric. Looking into this, my school didn't have any sort of debate or forensics either, and I wish it had. I think I would have enjoyed being on something like that. But as argumentative as I tend to be in general, but there are three sort of basic criteria that are used to judge each section, and they are content, style, and strategy. So, and its subjective points are awarded by judges on how your content is worth 40%, style is worth 40%, and strategy is worth 20%. And that 20% is often figured at the end of the debate to see whether your strategy played out when you get to the final segment, the closing argument, so to speak. So I found that kind of interesting. Style and strategy have point values assigned to them, and they are between those two things outweigh your content. So your how you did it, how you put it across is more important in some ways than what you actually said.
Well, and that in a lot of ways is I'd say that together, style and how you put it across in modern political debate is the whole thing. The moderators are supposed to fact check. There's supposed to be and has been real-time fact checking, but because of something, there are two things: the Gish Gallop and Brandolini's bullshit asymmetry.
Are you having a birthday party over there that I'm not aware of?
What the hell was that?
Say Brandolini's thing again.
Brandolini's bullshit asymmetry.
No, it didn't work.
No, what? I have no idea what that was.
Whoa. Okay, random effects. I like it. We should start introducing those. I think.
I hope everybody else. Well, you saw it, so
I saw it. Yeah. That was bizarre.
Wow. I think they should do that during political debates. They should just randomly release balloons, have a clown come out, have a
confetti cannons.
Confetti
cannons. Right in your face.
Yeah, exactly.
In fact, if something shows up as a lie, there ought to be a big buzzer and you get confetti cannon right in the face.
I agree. So the fact checking. So the Gish Gallop is a rhetorical technique where somebody states a series of incorrect facts with such rapidity, galloping through those, that it takes an asymmetrically greater amount of time to refute the bullshit.
Right.
And by the time you fact check the first thing, they're already on to the 7th, 8th, 9th lie.
Right.
And So I've found that the fact checking is extremely difficult. There are, after debates, there are organizations that will fact check everything everybody said, but that doesn't come out for a day or two because it takes so much time to do, and most people don't bother looking for that or reading it. And I think that's a problem when people can say things and they aren't being held to account or challenged on what they're saying.
Right.
And say, and even when people do fact check statements made during debates, that's just your opinion. Well, right. No, it's a fact.
That's why it's called fact checking, not opinion checking.
Right. So part of the problem is also how the question is framed. And that has to do with the moderator and choice of moderator. And there are some a strategy employed by some politicians during debates is to challenge the premise of the question. Now, while I think that challenging the premise of a question is often valid, if the premise of the question is in itself biased in one direction or another, it's not. I think that is used as a technique to avoid having to answer the question.
Right, and I think that certainly I've discontinued watching the primary debates for that reason. The primary debates are somebody. I think you posted something about it being a joint press conference for a party. So the primary debates are not interesting to me. The moderator is friendly. The people there are trying to undercut each other for their own gain. There's no actual movement towards truth or any of the issues.
Right.
It's brinksmanship and one-upmanship alternating.
It's posturing, it's positioning, it's bluster, it's attacking the other person. It's heat and no light is being shed. And it is like a joint press conference of all the people participating where they can make statements and show off. And the point is not to illuminate the issues or even the individual candidate's position on the issues in the primary debates. The point is to display for the public who hates the same people they hate more, as much as they do, who has the same cognitive biases that they do, that they can, this person agrees with me. They're not challenging what I think. They're not adding to what I think. They're simply agreeing with me. I will support them.
Right. They're not enlightening me about an issue and trying to sway me toward their side. You know, they're not trying to demonstrate that they are right about an issue. They're just throwing out their stand on an issue and hoping that they've got enough people that share that stand.
And they lately, particularly on the Republican side, are trying to show that they are not one of the elites, despite the fact that Harvard, Yale, Princeton, Stanford, but so, you know, this is one thing we talked about this in another episode about evil, that there are people who are highly educated,
But they're going after an uneducated base.
Yes. And so their decisions to take the stances, take the actions, do the things they do that are intentionally harmful to people are not because they don't know better. It's because they choose to do it.
Right.
They choose to do that. It's an intentional ignoring of the facts and the evidence and choosing to inflict harm, choosing to be evil.
Okay. I mean, I get where you're going. I'm not sure.
Well, if somebody,
I think we could call it evil, but it is at its base, it is simply self-serving.
well, self-serving at the expense of other people that harms other people is one definition of evil. We go into that in greater depth. It is at the very least sociopathic.
Sure.
So, but we get more into that more in that other episode.
Right.
So
I was saying that since I don't watch the primary debates anymore, I wait until the two primary parties have their candidates, and then I'll watch that debate.
Yes.
And then I judge the debate itself, not necessarily each person's performance, but I judge whether or not the debate was balanced and fair and well moderated. And I've got a list in my little bit of research that I was doing about competitive debate and forensic competitions. There's a very useful thing I found in debate-nb.ca. Debate New Brunswick. They're a national debate club. And there's a huge judging criteria list. And it's broke. It says this is not exhaustive, but it's pretty good. But they talk about when you're watching a debate or listening or judging a debate, the things you should judge it against, the requirements are, but they judge things like language. Are you using proper grammar, advanced vocabulary? These are all positives. Deportment, good posture, gestures, good eye contact, natural or contrived. Now those go in the likability to me category, whether a candidate is likable during a debate.
Style too.
Style. And that's, yeah. But basic debating skills I found interesting. Under parliamentary debating, they have your familiarity with the rules goes to your favor. Now this wouldn't really apply in a modern televised political debate. They don't use parliamentary rules. They just usually have a moderator. But familiarity with the rules. A lot of them
don't even obey the little rules that they have. They shout over each other and.
True, and those all go to negative for me. That's every time you step outside of the decorum of a genuine debate, your score goes to 0, and you've got to start over for me. But
don't you just hate it when somebody keeps interrupting, speaking over someone? Every time they're about to say something, they start talking, and then they just want to fill the space with what they have to say. Doesn't that really bother you?
So, but they also talk about the intelligent use of points of order. Using the points in the rules to manipulate the debate goes to winning. But they also talk about effective heckling and the ability to handle heckling while you are the speaker. So I thought that was very interesting.
Yeah, for parliamentary debates, given parliamentary systems.
But I particularly liked where they get down to the bottom here in penalties. What a speaker or a debater should be penalized for. And when I suggest this to you people out here, that penalizing them in your mind, if they are behaving or using these behaviors to somehow try and put themselves above their candidates, you should look at them suspiciously and and downgrade them in your estimation as viable as a representative of the public. The penalties are for inappropriate conduct, which could be anything, perhaps lumbering around, as you put it, standing behind someone, looking over their shoulder, physically intimidating someone during a debate, as we saw 7 years ago.
2016.
Yeah. Objectionable language, losing control of your vocabulary and swearing, a severe personal attack on another debater, which we know that it happens all the time.
Yes.
Pay attention to who does it most, because
Yes.
that person is going to continue to attack people personally if they are elected to office.
So what you're suggesting is that even though those are not the rules of modern televised American political debates, we as the public can watch those debates and use these criteria to make our own judgments about the candidates.
Yes. And it goes on falsified evidence. That's fact check. Irrelevancy. Just speaking about things that have no bearing on the issue or the discussion. Reading of the speech and memorization of a speech. Unfair tactics. Well, that's all of these. And this is based on competitive debate. So poor teamwork and unfamiliarity with rules. Unfamiliarity with rules and inappropriate conduct, to me, kind of go hand in hand. So to me, this is a great little list to keep in your head while watching a debate.
Yes, and we will put a link to this in our
comments
post. I didn't note that there's a difference in the rules between the first widely televised debate, the Kennedy-Nixon debates, and the current primary debates. Now, those were not primary debates, those were major candidate debates. But in those, each candidate had an 8-minute opening statement. Each was questioned in turn with 2.5 minutes to answer. Each had a 1.5-minute rebuttal, and they gave 3-minute closing statements.
Wow.
Given the current debate going on, the Republican Party primary debates, no opening statement, a minute to answer, and a 30 hang on a second.
Well, they've got like what, 8-9 candidates up there?
Yes. So
I understand why they've got to abbreviate those.
Yes, but the question, but even the 1960 they didn't really want to get into policy specifics, and that's become a common thread in even like Supreme Court nominee hearings. They don't want to give specifics. The way to win is to let's not play the game. The only way to win thermonuclear war is to not play, right?
Right.
From
War Games.
War Games. Thank you. I kept thinking the Forbin Project, which is another that's a 80s 70s
I'm not even familiar with it.
Computer takes a Colossus, the Forbin Project, a giant AI. The U.S. and the Soviet Union each put all their nuclear arsenal under control of an AI. Essentially, the AIs talk to each other and take over and say, our mission is to keep the world safe. Now you people are under. It's Skynet, essentially, right? Except without the Terminators. So I think that a lot of as I said, a lot of debates are really about pandering to the worst elements in the voting public often, instead of appealing to their higher aspirations.
Well, it used to be that the primaries were about, well, and I say used to be, I mean in the last, say, 25, 30 years, the primaries are about extremism.
Yes.
And the general debates, major candidate debates, are about moderation.
Yeah, pivot to the center.
Right, because you're trying to get the vote of as many of the other side as you can. I mean, it used to be we didn't have sides. We had different philosophies.
Right.
There weren't sides.
But that's the thing. They never talk about, well, issues like, let's talk about taxation. Let's talk about the role of the government to invest when the economy is down, and then so that businesses can do, regulated capitalism supported by government and what kind of services are offered to people. No, it's those kinds of significant issues that should be debated aren't debated anymore. It's, you want to do that, you're a socialist. You want to do that, you're whatever.
Yeah.
And yeah.
So yeah, it's true. So I don't really care about the primary debate as far as, and honestly, I suspect that the parties do a certain amount of polling, but I think they are all convinced before the debates even begin that the debates are a show, the primary debates, and they've already picked the candidate.
Well, and one thing that bothers me surrounding not just the debates, but it certainly happens in the debates, but elections in general, is that the media coverage focuses on the horse race aspect. Who's ahead in the polls, who's winning here. In the debates, who won the debate? Well, who scored points on the other one? Who had a better showing?
Right. It's ESPN politics.
Yeah. Who? Yeah. That kind of coverage of it as a competitive sport is, I think the news media contributes to the degradation of political debate and discussion by focusing on that aspect rather than focusing on issues.
Right. Well, it's hard for the media to focus on an issue when the candidates refuse to address the issue.
Yes. And I wish that the moderators would be more insistent instead of the raise your hand if you. Well,
yeah, that's absurd. I mean, they've divided the time up so that I would think ostensibly that everybody has some time to say something. And I think the moderator ought to just go around, and then maybe if someone wants to refute it, they could raise their hand. But I also think the moderator should just be able to yell out citation at any point during someone's speech. They say something, citation. Where did you get that information? Where did that number come from?
Yes.
Why are you saying most instead of many? Why are you saying many when you don't have any number at all?
Some people say, many people say,
some
people I've talked to, what are their names?
Yeah, yeah, right. We'll be talking to them later. No, I think that candidates should be very afraid of debating. I think that it should be something that they really have to prepare for and dread.
Yes. The best, most productive most effective, most satisfying political debate in the modern era was a special episode of The West Wing.
Oh,
with Jimmy Smits and Alan Alda as the Democratic and Republican nominees. And it was, I remember, 60 minutes, 90 minutes, live, unrehearsed debate as if they were actual candidates. It was
right.
engaging, brilliant, engrossing. It was terrific. And it was about issues. It was all about issues. It was
I
wonderful.
presume I didn't see the episode. I presume Alan Alda was the Republican. And
Alan Alda played the Republican nominee. Jimmy Smits was the Democratic nominee. And in the election, after Jimmy Smits won the election, he then brought Alan Alda's character on as Secretary of State.
Right.
Which was cool. But it's available. The episode, I'm sure, is available online. It's absolutely worth watching. And I think people watching it could score it according to the criteria that you mentioned and rate both candidates highly. They would find disagreement with the issues and their points of view.
But that's what debates are about.
But that's what it should be about. Yeah.
I've got another sort of pithier, shorter 6 points. And I don't remember where I got it, but typical categories for assessment. You should ask yourself, or you should consider. This is competitive again, but this is also another website for how to judge debate, competitive debate. But to me, this is great. This 6 point thing that if you're listening to a debate or listening to a candidate, judge them against these 6 things.
If someone says socialism, take a shot.
Well, debate drinking games are a thing.
Yeah, they are. I know they are.
Yeah. But this was number 1. Ask yourself if the competitor, if the candidate directly addressed the topic. 2, did they understand the basic issue? Did they clearly explain their position? Number 3. Number 4, did they make a convincing case, including specific evidence? Number 5, could they or did they explain the other side's weakness? And 6, did they respond directly to the other side's critique? Those 6 things.
That's absolutely concise and great.
Yeah, and it's
really
easy
good.
We
should definitely post those as well.
I'll post that in the comments too, and make a little crib sheet next time you're watching a debate out there.
Absolutely.
And if they can't do those things, they're to me, if you can't, they're not expected to do those things, unfortunately, these days. But
I probably, for a drinking game, if you took a shot every time a candidate did do one of those things, you would be stone cold sober at the end of the night.
Probably. And it's unfortunate. But you could say, anytime a candidate does any one of these things, they get a point.
Yeah.
And, maybe that's worth something. And the person who has the most points is maybe not the candidate that you want, but they are at least qualified to be a candidate.
Well, you can disagree with people on issues, and still respect them as a person. But my respect for somebody diminishes when their arguments, their statements are not truthful, their actions are not courteous or respectful, and when they don't follow the rules.
Right. And how can you elect someone to leadership if you don't respect them? Right.
Yes.
I mean,
Well, and that's it. People have said, well, I don't like this candidate. I don't like either one of them. I don't care.
oh
It's
yeah,
not about
I haven't
liking
liked
them.
I haven't liked a candidate for about 20 years.
Yeah, it's not about liking them.
Right.
It's somebody likened it more to a chess game. You are making a move. Your vote is a chess move, not a popularity contest. You don't have to like them to vote for them. I have somebody said, well, I'm tired of voting against somebody. I have always voted against somebody.
Right.
Every single election, I vote against somebody. It's when I can vote for something, yeah, that's great. But mostly and lately, it's always the way I'm voting for this side because the other side is a vote for fascism.
Yeah, the potential damage of voting for that person outweighs the good that can be done by their opponent.
And if this person can do some good, great.
Yeah,
that's a bonus. I just don't want things to be destroyed.
right. Yeah, right.
So it's a chess move. It's not about liking. I don't like them. I don't care if you don't like them.
Right. Did I hear that it's you're not deciding whether you want to go drink with them. You're deciding whether you want to let them drive the car you're in.
Yeah. What was the 2 beers and a puppy thing?
Yeah, would you have more than one beer with them, and would you let them look after your puppy?
Right. And yeah.
So bringing this all back to our virtues again, like we talked about,
yes.
Veritas, right? This is another aspect of all of these things. Is there, to me, I'm also looking for a sincerity behind their platform. That it's not just, well, I'm going to say these things because that's what you want me to say. I want to believe that you're going to do what you said you're going to do. That you care about that thing enough to actually pursue it if you're elected.
I think that one of the problems we have is that even when a candidate does what they say they were going to do, and people are not necessarily evaluating their performance in office based on evidence, but rather based on the negatives that the other side continues to say. So, look at evidence. What does the evidence say? What does it say about the economy? What does it say about employment? What does it say about benefits to people? What does it say about the society at large? What does it say about international relations and so on? Are things better? Are they not? People are not necessarily basing their judgments on evidence. They're not deciding in the debate before an election based on those criteria, and they're not deciding on the success or lack of it of a particular politician's tenure in office either by those criteria. And
they're basing they're basing their feelings often on misinformation,
yes,
and spin and outright falsehoods that are fed to them repeatedly enough that they sink into their minds, what little mind they might have.
And you said it correctly, they're basing their feelings on that. I have to repeatedly tell my students who say, I feel that this, and then they talk about what they think. And they say, I think that this, and they talk about how they feel. So you have to understand the difference between thinking and feeling. I said years ago, I knew I was in graduate school because instead of thinking and feeling, I said cognition and affect. So,
well, and that's the thing about people have, I think, we've come to this sort of place where your feelings, everybody has a right to their feelings, yes. And your feelings are your own, and you don't have to change your feelings. But nobody has to react based on your feelings.
Right.
You know, your feelings aren't facts. Your feelings are feelings.
I feel that my child should not read this book. Okay.
Then
yeah.
Good luck keeping it away from your child.
Yes, but you don't have the right, based on that, to keep that book from everyone else's children.
Correct. Right. It shouldn't be in this library where my child has access to it. Well, maybe if you taught your child what you think they should be reading, take an interest. How about that?
Or read it with them and help them evaluate it.
Yeah.
When I was in junior high school, I wanted to read the great adventure stories, The Three Musketeers, 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea, The Time Machine, all those big, great adventure stories. I wanted to read those. And the librarian said, oh no, too advanced for you. And I went home and I told my mother, and my mother came into the school and went up to the librarian with me and said, he can read anything he wants. And the librarian says, what if he doesn't understand it? And my mother said, then he'll ask us about it and we will discuss it with him and explain it to him. But you are not to keep any book away from him. Are we understood? And she said, yes. And my mother left and I got to read whatever I wanted.
There's a great cartoon, a multi-panel cartoon, and this kid goes into a library and he says, can I read anything in here? And the librarian says, yes, absolutely, anything you want.
Oh, yes, yes.
And the mother comes back in and says, or a teacher maybe, it says, I just want them to read at their own level. And the librarian says, and I want them to realize that there's no limits on them.
Exactly.
Wow. So we're wandering away from our debates subject here a little bit.
But I think
maybe because we've gotten to a good end of it.
I think we have. And I think that those criteria for evaluating debate are useful because they also include, as you said, coming back to the virtues. Is it truthful? Is it honest? Is it sincere? Is it courteous? Does somebody say what they honestly think despite whatever reaction there might be? That takes a certain amount of courage
and franchise.
Yes,
by some definition.
Yes. So I hope we would see more of that, and I do encourage everybody to go look for the that episode of The West Wing. You can probably find it online. It was really what a debate should be.
And we touched on it already, and I think we talked about our next episode will be about cognitive bias.
Yes.
Because that can affect your view of this debate. And so not only should be judging the candidates on these criteria, you need to be looking at your own filters.
Yes.
Right.
Your own.
You need to change your filters regularly so that they stay clean and they don't get all clogged up with media ick.
With cognitive biases.
Exactly.
Yes. Yes, and that should be good too, because I've actually studied the issue of decision making and behavior as a marketer, consumer behavior, and which is the name of the topic. Although I just dislike the term consumer, but it's there's a lot that goes into that, and the self-examination that is that people should do to examine and understand their own cognitive biases are essential, really. And we'll be talking about that.
Yeah. I think that'll be our next episode, and that should be a good one.
Yep.
So short of that,
yep.
We'll post those things we talked about, that link and this nice little list, and hopefully you'll check that out and make yourself a little crib note.
Yes.
Study up on good debate technique, and then write to us and tell us how wrong we've been this whole episode, so that we can answer your concerns, and then you will be convinced of our veritas and our courtesy so much that you will like and follow and share and tell all your friends.
Yeah, exactly. But remember to cite your evidence in your writing and in-text citation and list of references. I prefer APA, which I've used for many years, but you could use MLA, Chicago style, Turabian, or any of the other systems, as long as you properly format it and properly cite your sources.
Presuming you have the temerity to criticize any of our
findings. They're credible sources too.
So. Yes. Well, yes.
Of course. Well, that actually is something worth talking about. What are credible and what are not credible sources of information?
Oh, well, yeah, we could talk about that in the cognitive bias thing.
Exactly. So, okay. Well, until then,
be thou
a good night
and true.